Hey, and welcome back to Ontario Cryptids. I would first like to wish all my American subscribers a happy Thanksgiving. I know it's Sunday today, and you guys would have probably celebrated your turkey fest on Thursday. But unfortunately, right now, I am uploading only on Sundays. But I didn't want to forget wishing you guys a happy Turkey Day. So I hope you guys enjoyed your time with your friends and family. Now, today's story comes from right here in Ontario. We are going back to a camp type environment for this absolutely wonderful story. So hang in there. And on that note, if you guys have a story of your own that you would like to share, then please go ahead and share your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com. Okay, I think you all know what's coming up next. You know this part, right? Go grab yourself a favorite beverage or snack and sit back and relax. Okay, so this story is close to home. It's in Ontario. It takes place over a 3-year period from 1996 to 1999, and it occurs on a scout camp near, on or around Lake Christie, and I believe Lake Christie is in Perth, Ontario. So here we go, guys. I don't know where to begin. To this day, even the thought of what I'm about to tell you makes every hair in my body stand up and brings tears to my eyes. Why tears? I don't know, but they are genuine. I have never discussed this with anyone. I hadn't planned to, but after stumbling across your site, I think I had a change of heart. I live in Ontario, Canada. It is probably for this reason that I have never said anything until now. To my knowledge, almost all Sasquatch sightings are along the west coast on the continent and along the Rocky Mountains. I don't know how many sightings have been recorded this far east, but I know what I saw and heard on a few separate occasions. I used to work at a scout camp in northeastern Ontario. It is a very remote location, nearly an hour's drive from any civilization, and one of the only true scout camps in all of Canada. It is surrounded by lakes and large hills of dense forest on all sides, and there are a few cottages scattered here and there around the main lake the camp is situated on, Lake Christie, if I remember correctly. Although I live far away from this place, I worked there every summer from 1996 to 1999. My first experience happened in 1996. I was 16 years old then. As a counselor, every 2 weeks we were moved around and put in charge of different scout cub groups. I guess so everyone gets a chance to work with groups of all ages. On this particular rotation, I was working with one of the senior scout groups at the camp. As part of their last week there, they had to partake in what we called a solo night. This is where each camper is driven by one of the assistant camp directors to a remote location and left for the night with bare necessities to survive: a sleeping bag, rations for 1 day, and 2 strike-anywhere matches. It was on this particular night that I will never forget the sounds that I heard. It was late at night in August. I'm not exactly certain of the time, and I was sleeping in my tent in the upper field, which is not exactly on the campgrounds, but up the dirt road quite a ways and into the bush another 5-minute walk. Altogether, probably a 20-minute walk from the main campground. In the middle of my slumber, I was suddenly awakened by a loud, deep, shrieking, squealing sound that I have never heard before. I sat up in my tent, alarmed and uncertain of what I had heard. I thought maybe it was one of my colleagues playing a trick on me, or the other 2 campers who were camped up there alone for the night. This being a camp full of staff who are well known for their pranks, I wouldn't have put it past them. Then I heard the noise again. It was even louder. At first I thought it was a skunk being attacked by a coyote or something. I've heard that sound before and witnessed it. For those who don't know, skunks actually make a sort of shrieking, squealing sound when being mauled to death. I saw it firsthand, but that is another story altogether. Ed's note: all mustility, such as wolverines, weasels, badgers, civet cats, skunks, and otters, etc., emit a loud to groaning squeal or high rolling shriek, often sounded like a woman in hopeless distress when caught by a predator or in iron-set traps. The sound can be very loud and unnerving, even from a wounded rabbit. However, this sound was much deeper. Then, just as it had come, the sound stopped. I laid awake for the rest of the night, barely moving a muscle. When morning came and the sun was bright enough, I slowly came out of my tent and walked to the main campground for breakfast. A few minutes later, the other 2 counselors came down to the main camp and gave me a mysterious glance. Then one of them approached and asked me, "Was that you making all that racket last night? You scared poor Dave half to death." I just looked at him and said, "What racket?" with a stone-cold look. He gave me a knowing look and walked away. We never discussed it after that, and no one mentioned pulling a prank on me or the other 2 that night. Sooner or later, everyone owned up to their pranks, but no one even mentioned this one at all. It was not until months later that I realized what I may have heard. I was watching a documentary on TV about Bigfoot, and a crew hunting this evasive being had recorded what they thought were mating calls of this mysterious creature. When I heard the sounds of the recording come from the TV, the memories of that night all came back to me. I quickly sat up, eyes glued to the screen, and the hairs on my neck stood up. It sounded almost identical. I couldn't believe what I was hearing again. My next encounter was 2 years later in 1998, again in August. It was late August and there were no more cubs for the remainder of the summer, so the designated cub field and its cabins were vacant. So, not having much to do and no kids to watch, I decided to sleep in the cub field with the rest of the staff who had no children to take care of. The cub field is exactly that. It is a large clearing in the middle of a dense forest, up yet another hill. It is probably 150 yards wide and probably 200 to 250 yards long, with a row of small cabins on either side. While I laid in bed in one of the cabins, I woke a little after 12 a.m. I don't know why, but I was suddenly awake. In the distance, I heard what I thought was howling, but I wasn't exactly sure. It sounded kind of muffled, but I was used to that sort of thing. I looked over at the other counselor staying in the cabin with me that night, and he was fast asleep. Then out of nowhere, I heard what I thought was someone running right by my cabin. The steps were heavy and quick. I shot out of bed, grabbing my flashlight, wondering who was running around at this hour, since everyone was supposed to be in bed hours ago. I swung the door of the cabin open and shone my light in the field. I couldn't believe what I saw next. About 40 feet diagonally from me, I saw a large, hairy creature walking across the field very swiftly. I stood there in shock, wondering what my eyes were seeing. This thing was absolutely enormous. At first, I thought it might have been a bear, but then I realized something. It was walking upright on 2 legs. It was very tall, bulky, and had dark brown hair covering its entire body. Then, as if it noticed my flashlight, it stopped, turned, and looked at me. I could see the yellow reflection of its eyes and its face. The face seemed to be almost half human, half ape-like, having little hair on its face, but the skin was almost the same color as its hair, a sort of light brownish color. It stood there looking at me, and I at it, for what seemed like an eternity, but was probably more like a few seconds. I wanted to scream. I wanted to wake up the others, but I was frozen. I was caught up in this phenomena that I was seeing and couldn't move. That's when I noticed the smell. It was such a rancid odor, I had to plug my nose to save from puking. Then the creature turned and began to continue its swift movement across the field. And in a matter of seconds, it was across the field, walked between two cabins and into the dense forest. It was when it walked between the two cabins that I realized how tall this being was. I'm 6 feet tall. Without standing on my tippy toes, I can reach approximately 7 feet 4 inch mark. This thing, as I walked between the two cabins, was taller than where the top of one of the doors is. The cabins are elevated off the ground. From standing on the ground, I couldn't touch the top of one of the doors. I'm a couple of inches shy of it. I checked the next day. I would estimate that this thing was probably around 8 feet tall or close to it. Again, I lay awake for the rest of the night, my hatchet by my side. This was the scenario for many of my remaining nights of that summer before I went home. There were even sleepless nights after that while at home. I didn't think I was afraid of anything until that night. I tried searching for tracks the next day, but to no avail. I couldn't find anything. The next day I asked one of the head counselors if there were any large animals in this general area, such as bears, and he said, nope. Apparently there were no bears for miles and miles. I never mentioned anything about what I saw that night. I didn't want anyone to think I was crazy. I thought I would just wait and see if anyone else mentioned something before I said anything. No one did. My last encounter was the following year, and my final, yet again in August. I don't know why I went back after all the nightmares and sleepless nights from the previous summer. I guess I thought it was a once-in-a-lifetime thing. This time, I had taken a rowboat out onto the lake with a lady friend who I met that summer. Yes, there are female staff at scout camps. The main beach for the camp is in a small inlet of the lake, almost like a sort of small bay, before it opens up. As I was taking her on our romantic moonlight row, I heard what I thought was somebody whistling at me. I stopped rowing. She didn't hear it, but I know I did. I looked around at the surrounding shoreline, and I didn't see anything. Next, I heard a splash, a little one, as if someone had thrown a rock into the water. I thought maybe another couple was somewhere along the shore. I grabbed my flashlight and she grabbed hers. We scanned the shore from the safety of the boat to see if we could spot them. We were scanning in different sections, and then I saw them, those eyes. The yellow reflection. I focused in on them, and they had an eerie resemblance to the ones that I have seen the year before. "Do you see them?" I heard her ask. Without looking at her, I said, "No, you?" "No," she replied. "What is that?" referring to the eyes caught in my light. "A deer?" she asked. "Yeah, probably," I said, but I knew better. Then the eyes were gone. We then agreed that there was probably another couple out there, and we didn't want to get busy in front of the other people, so I turned the boat around and we went back to camp. I have kept this secret for many years now. This is one thing I can honestly say I haven't told a single soul until now. I will never forget what I've seen and heard. Although there was no physical contact, I've been extremely traumatized from what I've experienced. All this has been put in the back of my mind until now, probably because there was a show on the Discovery Channel about Sasquatch today. Like I said before, it still makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up and my eyes water. Thank you so much for your story. It is a fantastic one, and the fact that it comes from Ontario is even more special. Like you, I also didn't feel that Sasquatches could exist in Ontario. I thought that they would only be able to coexist on the west coast of the States and of Canada. That was until my son brought home that magazine that changed everything for me, and is partly one of the reasons why I started this channel. So if you don't know my story, I have uploaded it. It is one of my previous uploads, so go back and take a listen to that. So again, I know there are probably many of you out there who have had a similar encounter, either here in Canada or in the United States or abroad. And if you need a place to share your encounter story, you can do so here. You can forward your stories to OntarioCryptids@gmail.com, and I will be more than happy to share your story on this channel. So that marks the end of this episode. I hope you all truly enjoyed this. And again, I wish all my American subscribers a happy Thanksgiving. I know it's belated, but unfortunately all my uploads are on Sunday, at least for now. So again, happy Thanksgiving to you all, and we will see you all next week.